Hi, everyone. I'm
Hello.
delighted to be joining you. So, cruise tourism has not only rebounded, it's redefined the pace of recovery. From megaships to boutique yachts, the diversity of offerings reflect a sector that is agile, aspirational, and increasingly aligned with traveler values. Today, cruising is no longer just about the journey, it's about the immersive experiences. It's about culinary excellence, wellness, and cultural connection. It rivals top hospitality brands in delivering premium value. But cruising is also about place. Destinations are not just stops, they're partners. In this session, we'll explore how cruise lines are engaging with communities, supporting local economies, and navigating complex issues like taxation and sustainability. We'll also examine the evolving geography of cruising, from the enduring appeal of the Caribbean and the Mediterranean to the rising interest in the Middle East. And we'll look ahead. What role will cruising play in shaping the global tourism community over the next 20 to 30 years, or maybe just the next 5 to 10 years? So joining me for this discussion is an esteemed panel of good friends and colleagues. To my left is Manfredi Lefebvre. He is the executive chairman of Heritage Holdings, whose portfolio includes, among many things, Crystal Cruises and Abercrombie & Kent. He's also the newly elected chair of the World Travel and Tourism Council. Manfredi brings deep insight into how high-end cruising continues to evolve and aspire. Lars Clasen is the CEO of Cruise Saudi and Arroyo Cruises. Cruise Saudi and Arroyo Cruises are leading the kingdom's ambitious expansion into global cruising. It's under Lars's leadership that Saudi Arabia is energizing as a new destination, blending heritage, innovation, and hospitality at sea. Next to Manfredi is Chris Theophilides. He's the CEO of Celestyal Cruises, known for its immersive itineraries across the Eastern Med. Chris champions culturally rich, mid-sized cruising that connects travelers with the heart of the region. Next to Chris is JD O'Hara. He's the CEO of Internova Travel Group, representing 100,000 travel advisors worldwide, among other things. JD brings deep insight into traveler demand writ large and the enduring role of advisors in cruise bookings. And finally, at the end, is Jordi Carnes. He's the former CEO of the Barcelona Tourism Board and a leading voice in destination strategy. Jordi brings a valuable perspective on how cities can partner with cruise lines to balance growth, sustainability, and community benefit. So with that, let's just jump right into it. You know, I think what we know is that cruisers love to cruise, and cruising is getting ever more popular. Chris, maybe we can start with you, and you can talk about why you think cruising, ocean cruising in particular, is so popular.
Sure, Kelly. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to this phenomenal event. Cruising has been growing and outpacing actually overall tourism growth for the last 3 decades. And so there must be a reason behind it, right, as you say. There's various segments within cruising, from contemporary, premium to luxury. But when you boil it down, I think there's 3 common pillars that apply to all segments of cruising and why it's so popular and why it's growing so fast. One is accessibility, the other is value, and the third, in my opinion, is experience. So when we talk about accessibility, it's about the seamless travel associated with cruising, seamless logistics, and waking up in a new destination every day. No other forms of travel can provide that seamlessly and hassle-free, essentially, than cruising. The second element, which is value. Value means different things to different people. To some, it might be, how good a deal you get. To others, it might be how they feel about an experience. And so it applies across to all segments of cruising. It's just phenomenal value. You cannot get this, the experience you get through cruising from other forms of travel, in my opinion. my opinion doesn't count. It's the guest experience that counts, and by the numbers, I think that stands true. And finally, the third element, as I mentioned, is experience. Cruising is not transportation. Cruising is a lifestyle experience where there's fine dining on board, top-notch entertainment, oftentimes theater-style entertainment, wellness at sea, and that joined up seamlessly again with curated onshore cultural experiences. So that package is phenomenal as an experience. And I think these three elements are what drives the growth that we see in cruising,
And
which
Chris,
is only capped really by
Yep.
capacity constraint and nothing else.
I think you told me a story, maybe it was last summer, about just how impacted Europe was and how difficult it was to get a hotel room in, let's say, Italy, but there was still some availability on cruise ships. So literally in terms of value, the price of a weekend on a cruise, you actually had access into the market and at a level that was commensurate with some of the finest luxury properties on shore.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's as tourism, land-based tourism grows, you see different peculiar things going in marquee destinations, such as a minimum stay of 3 days or 4 days. But people are time starved, and they have a specific amount of time to enjoy what they want. And so these restrictions play, I think, into the hands of cruising and the flexibility that cruising provides.
Yep. Now, clearly, we don't have enough time to cover all the topics we are going to cover. But one of the things I think we want to talk about are some of the trends in cruising, which is just how popular luxury has become and how popular expedition has come. This is clearly a space that you know a lot about, Manfredi. So maybe you can talk about kind of the travel demand as it relates to that.
So if I remember, it was 1992, I owned the first expedition ship together with Sir Geoffrey Kent, who's here in the room, who was a pioneer of expedition at the time. So we partner. And that was the beginning of a long-term relationship where now I own the company that he has created. So I know a lot about it. And when the Silver Sea was growing in success, and I was trying to find ways to expand its footprint, I looked at various sectors. Then I chose to start going through the opportunity of expedition cruising. And we started, now most cruise lines followed on that, and they have it. And it's proving to be a great sector. The prices are very interesting, remuneration is very high. And of course, we have built a model of a company which is the combination of the greatest travel company ever created, which is Abercrombie & Kent, in my view, with a great cruise line that I acquired and I think I brought to the highest standard. And combined, it offers the world of experiential travel at the highest level. So it's part of my life focus, if we could say.
And so we're talking a little bit about kind of the demand for cruise. So expedition is big, luxury is big. Chris, you mentioned that cruise ships come in all sizes. So we know there's mega ships, we know there's mid-sized ships, we know there's luxury, and we know there's yachting. And so of those, we know, JD, that I think it's almost 70 or maybe 74% of all cruises are still booked by travel advisors, because clearly there's a lot to navigate. Maybe you can talk to us about basically the demand for travel generally and how cruise fits into that and how advisors play a role.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Kelly, and thank you to TOURISE for having me. I feel like a child amongst adults here with my cruise experience relative to my colleagues here, but it's nice to be able to try to contribute from a distribution perspective. So sometimes this is fun for me to do when we have an audience, but Kelly, you and I talked about this previously. Just to get a show of hands in the audience, how many people here have been on a cruise?
Oh.
Not bad.
So actually, that's higher than I would have expected.
Shockingly high.
I would tell you normally it's about 5 to 10% of the room. So our job as advisors, and it's a complicated product, right? So our job as advisors is to educate people. So I'll take myself, for instance. I'm a relatively new cruiser, despite the fact that we run one of the largest travel distribution companies in the world. But 4 years ago, I decided to take my family on a cruise, and I was hesitant for a number of reasons, and I think this is probably common for most people. Hesitant because I didn't like the idea of being captive on effectively what is a hotel without being able to walk out the front door and go for dinner down the street. I didn't like the idea of being subject to somebody else's itinerary, where if I wanted to leave early, I didn't have that choice. If I wanted to extend my stay, I didn't have that choice. So it's got a lot to do with education. But what I discovered was, and again, self-educated, but advisors are who taught me to go on a cruise, or who convinced me to go on a cruise. But what I learned was the quality of the experience, the quality of the hardware, the quality of the food, the entertainment, the service was really, really world class. And it occurred to me that it's not a cruise, it's a vacation, just happens to be at sea. So I think that's contributed to growth for sure. The number of choices out there, expedition cruising, river cruising, luxury cruising, as you mentioned, is exponential at this point. So I think a lot of choice as well. And again, we're educating people with that. And I think lastly, there are a number of luxury hotel brands coming online in the luxury yachting space. And I think this will be a little bit less to do with the advisors, but I think, you see Ritz-Carlton sailing already. You've got Four Seasons coming online, Orient Express, and Amman at Sea, of course. And so I think you'll see you'll see a conversion of non-cruisers into cruisers, who then will expand into other categories like Crystal and Celestial and Arroya, among others. So our job again is to educate, but it's been fun. So I've had the pleasure of joining Manfredi on one of his ships, and I now am officially a cruiser thanks to our advisors convincing me so.
Great.
Terrific. That's a good segue into Lars. So Lars, just so that we'd have enough time to cover it all, I cut off your impressive bio, as I did everyone else on the stage, but you have extensive experience in hospitality. As we've just talked about, cruising now does rival some of the top hotel brands, does provide kind of a lifestyle experience that is similar to what you can find on land. So when we think about kind of how the sector is redefining premium travel, what lessons do you think hospitality leaders can learn from cruises' evolution?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor to be at this wonderful event of TOURISE. And coming to your question, I think cruise has a great advantage over many other forms of vacationing, because everyone loves to be at the sea. Let me do an analogy with, for instance, real estate. Which real estate commands the highest prices? Seafront real estate. So everyone loves to be at the sea. Everyone loves to be at a cruise. And the cruise is a perfect product in my view, because it combines variety, a number. I mean, Chris, you mentioned a variety of things, a variety of destinations, excellent food, wonderful entertainment, and safety on board. It's a family product. It's great for children. I've seen so many instances where the children, regardless of what age, draw their parents to the next vacation, back going on a cruise. I think this is a very important point. And then if you look at the different segments of cruise, the mainstream cruise or luxury, ultra-luxury expedition, there is so much variety in it, and especially on the big ships, you have such a variety of offers. It's almost like a city, so that everyone on board can really have an enjoyable time. And this is amazing, and this is something which you don't find. But many people underestimate how much detailed work is behind this, because designing a ship like that, having in mind what are the people going to do at 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and how many people are doing this and how many people are doing that. There's a lot of detailed work behind it, and I think this detailed work is so important, making cruise successful, and obviously it has been done in a very professional way, so the market is growing. And by definition, as the overall market is growing, we now have way more than 30 million cruise guests worldwide. And by definition, with a growing market, also the smaller segments like ultra luxury are growing, then again fueled by many of the brands, of the hotel brands, seeing that this is a very interesting business opportunity.
Yep. So picking up, JD, I'm going to put you on the spot. Since you are not a super experienced cruiser, but you have cruised, either direction, what can land-based hospitality leaders learn from cruise, or what can cruise learn from land-based hospitality leaders?
So I would say that the number one thing that I took away from cruising is just the overall value. I like not making decisions. I like having decisions. I make enough decisions during the day, every day, and so I like somebody else taking control of that. And so I think that may liken itself to a DMC product or a tour operator or something like that, but from start to finish to be engaged the way that you are on a cruise, I think is something that land-based operators can learn from for sure. I'm not sure that, I think the cruise lines, especially my colleagues here on the stage, I think they do a wonderful job, and I'm not sure there's a whole lot that they can take away from the land-based operators, but I think certainly land-based operators can learn from cruise lines.
Terrific. So eventually, Jordi, I'm working towards you. A big part of cruising has to do with destinations, and clearly crews sometimes get a rap for how they engage at the destination level. I know firsthand just the extent to which each and every one of you go to practice responsible tourism. Manfredi, I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about the kind of the responsible tourism practices that Abercrombie & Kent and Crystal Cruises and the other businesses you work with, how do they approach destinations?
Well, of course, we are, our business is pristine destinations. So of course, our focus is always whatever preserve pristine destinations, but that's a general attitude. When I acquired Abercrombie & Kent, I found within the company a little jewel, which was created by Sir Geoffrey, which is Abercrombie & Kent Philanthropy. Abercrombie & Kent Philanthropy brings forward a number of initiatives in every country or location where we operate. For example, in Africa, we do certain schools where we supply equipment which produces fresh water and food. Now, if you supply food and fresh water in the school, all the parents will bring the children to the school. Otherwise, they will not. Because there's a free meal and it's a poor community. And that creates a lot of elevation of the level of education of the people. But there's so many of this. Another one is entrepreneurial enhancement of the people. We have some initiatives which are, we bring from US, Europe, bicycles, second-hand bicycles, and we give them to these local organizations which revamp them and then sell them at the people. And the bicycle makes a fundamental difference in certain community because you can move fast instead of having to walk. So, but there's so many of these, hospitals, educational, and so we are now enhancing that and expanding it, and it's going to be a way to not only look at our self-interest, which is preservation, but also look at the communities where we operate for their good sake.
Chris, do you want to add anything about the work Celestyal does?
Sure. I mean, in your introduction, you mentioned that Celestyal operates in the Eastern Mediterranean. More recently, we actually have operations in the Gulf. But where we have a bit of history of operating in the Eastern Mediterranean, we work very closely with local communities. It's completely different experience to what we're doing in the Gulf, and I can elaborate separately. But in the Eastern Mediterranean, there's a lot of fragmentation. There's not a comprehensive national plan in certain countries, and certainly no regional plan to speak of. So we have a very direct communication with the local communities and try to have a local first approach in everything we do, be it sourcing, be it especially the shore experiences, working with the locals, and trying just to promote anything that the locals guide us to as their priorities, and work hand in hand to make sure what their priorities are being addressed through what we do as a company.
All right, Jordi, now I get to loop you in. So, as I think you know, because Barcelona is one of the biggest home ports in the world, cruise passengers come a day or two early before their cruise, stay a day or two after their cruise. They support then the broader tourism ecosystem, so whether it's air or ground transportation, hotels, restaurants, retail. From a destination perspective, these guys are all operators. What do you think is the opportunity for partnership with cruise lines?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. As you meant, quite often the players don't know each other in terms of working together. So it's obvious, and it gives for granted, but in fact it doesn't happen. Barcelona airport will not be as it is without the cruises. Clear. Because there's a lot of people coming from other parts of the world that they're using the airport to come to the port. Who explains that story? Nobody. That's the main problem. I mean, quite often we see the industries isolated with the rest of the industries, and that causes a certain misunderstanding. Inverted commas, thanks for the pandemic, people realize that tourism is a great economical activity without which we cannot work with. It's difficult to say it, but that's the truth. And in this, we're talking about the industry, about happiness. But who plays the story of happiness? Who is the troubadour? Who is the singer? And I may say we lost it, or we forget it, to explain stories. And everything now around in the world is about who plays the story. The people who are against, they're very active in their social network. Those who are in favor don't say anything, or at least they're not capable enough to display the advantages. One is the airport, but there are other ones. They have always the skills to keep on with the ship, etc. So I think one of the main problems is working together. For example, hoteliers and cruisers, for years they were not working together since they realized with the home port, which they're going to stay for 1 or 2 or 3 days. Then all of a sudden they realize they can cooperate. That's a little example of those examples of not working together.
Jordi, I want to just kind of stay on Barcelona for a moment and just talk about kind of from a city's perspective. You know, I think the cruise industry, as an industry, often talks about its growth and its revenue it's generating, and I think sometimes cities and municipalities are looking for ways to fund projects, and so they look at cruise as an opportunity to do that. When you think ahead and you think about taxation or the role of kind of collecting fees, what are your thoughts on that, and how does that really benefit cities?
Good question. I was responsible for the finances of the city, so I know a little about what you're talking about. The main question is two sides of the coin. One is, what is money coming from? What do you do with that? What is it used for? And the sector, not only the cruises, but I will say also the hoteliers, just to put another one, which we collect money from, they don't explain and ask what this money is going for. You collect, you give it, and nobody knows where it's gone to. And I think it's a misunderstanding for both sides. This money is helping such and such and such and such. And that's why a lot of people are blaming. I always say to the hoteliers, and I have the chance also to speak with the cruise industry, explain what this money is going for. That makes pedagogy and makes citizens in your city understand if that school has been changed or that park has been done or whatever it's been done, it's because of that money. So pedagogy has been lost in the finances world of the cities. That's my personal experience, and I would say, unfortunately, it's still on that way to work and explain.
Manfredi, would you like to, I'm mindful of time, but just a quick add-on to Jordi's. Do you want to say anything about his point about understanding how the money is used?
About?
How the fees that are collected or taxes that are garnered, do you have a point of view on behalf of your companies about how those funds are used?
I don't know, the ink was terrible.
Yeah, I want to move on to the next thing, but I think what Jordi's point is, it's really important to know where these funds are going, and I think the cruise industry generally wants it reinvested.
When you take away money from the companies, you reduce their capabilities of growth and expansion or improvement of the product. So as an entrepreneur, I see it as negative. But, I mean, at least you have to use them. We know that certain things to facilitate business have to come from the public sector. So if you tax, then put back in that sector also to facilitate it. There's so much to be done.
There is. So in the same vein as taxation, and again, mindful of time, travel facilitation and visa, taxation, these are all issues that cruise companies consider when they consider their itineraries. And itineraries are just essential to how cruise passengers are making their choices. I would be remiss if we did not spend our remaining time really talking about cruising in the region. So Lars, I'm looking at you first. As you've navigated Cruise Saudi and with Arroyo Cruises, what are you learning about demand for the area? What are the lessons and best practices that you're employing that might be helpful for everybody on the stage, but everybody in the audience?
Well, yeah, Cruise Saudi is not just Arroyo. Cruise Saudi is also operating ports in the region. And I think especially for the question of visa and taxation, that's almost more important because our goal is to welcome any cruise line of the world and their passengers to the kingdom and to the region. And we obviously have had many discussions and still do with facilitating easier entry to the kingdom, and we're making progress on that, but this is something which is extremely important for cruise guests. And I mean, imagine a cruise ship of a few thousand guests, and you take 2 minutes with 10 immigration booths, 2 minutes per person. The ship is leaving by the time everybody has done its immigration procedure. So we need to speed this up, and we need to find easier ways of clearance by manifest, clearance of the ship by manifest, etc. So there are many things which we are working on. But what is more important to make this an attractive region is the combination with other countries in the region, like the Red Sea has another side, Egypt, Jordan. On the Gulf side, we have multiple of other destinations, and we joined Cruise Arabia in order to promote the region as a whole. And I think that's quite important because cruise lines are looking, they don't just want to come to one country, they want to experience the whole region. And I think that's quite important effort which we're doing.
Manfredi, do you want to jump in?
I've been coming here to the kingdom at the beginning in the 70s, so I'm a veteran. And then I put the first ship operating here in 2020. So I'm absolutely convinced that the region can offer a variety of opportunities which make a product very interesting. If you think about it, you start with Dubai, which is the Miami of the area of Southern Europe also. You go along, you have Abu Dhabi with its architecture, Doha with its architecture. Then you arrive at the Straits of Hormuz, fantastic sceneries. Oman, a country full of old traditions. Okay, you have to skip Yemen, unfortunately, but you arrive to Saudi Arabia, beautiful coastal coast and old towns and the islands. So it is a variety of things that you have, which is necessary, I think, for a cruise product.
Sure.
Because cruise product cannot be you go from one beach to the other. A cruise product has to offer opportunities to do things. When you arrive at port and you can watch different things and learn culture or look at the activities that you can do. So it's a great variety. And if you think about it, it's only 5 hours from most Northern European destinations, and more than that, there's no time zone, so no jet lag. You go on the plane, you pass your 5 hours there, and you arrive in these beautiful sceneries. You take your 5, 6, 7 day cruise, and you fly back again. It's perfect. It's our Caribbean.
Chris?
If I may, Kelly, I agree with both gentlemen. I mean, our experience in the region is, one, there's much more regional harmonization when it comes to visas and procedures. Yes, there are things that need to be done, but we're happy to see that they're being done. It's a stark contrast to where we've been operating the last 20, 30 years, where this region is actually miles ahead in certain areas and facilitating cruise operators for that seamless journey that I mentioned earlier about the value of cruising and the experience of cruising. The seamless part of the journey is critically important, and the region is addressing this. And I salute Saudi Arabia's recent joining into the Cruise Arabia as well as Qatar. So the whole region now has a regional mindset. And that leads into what Manfredi says, that there are so many destinations in this region. We tried on a trial basis last year, one ship on a short season. We're coming back this year with 2 ships on an extended season. It's just so inviting. The guest feedback is very strong. So I view that this region has phenomenal potential in terms of cruising. It has the destinations, it has the correct mindset, has ambitions to grow tourism in general, and I think cruising would be a catalyst for that.
Well, that sounds like a good one to end on. We have about 2.5 minutes left. This is the only ocean cruising session dedicated in TOURISE. If I can ask each of you just to say one thing you'd like to leave this audience with. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about how diverse the industry is. We've talked about some of the challenges we have. But Manfredi, I'm going to end with you. So I'm going to ask you at the very end, what's one thing you want to leave this audience with? But I'm going to start with you, Jordi. One thing you want to leave this audience with as a result of this panel?
Cruises is very important. And also it's very important that those who are the players also speak, let's say, clearly with the public authorities. Because they have to take into account the visitor, the cruiser, but also those who are living in that city. I think it's basic that they both talk clearly and comfortably. People have to come, this is an experience, and those who are living in that city have to feel it as in a positive way, not as a permanent stranger who is coming there for one day. I think we need to reassemble both logics, and that's why we need people in the industry explaining the positive elements that are behind the industry. If not, sometimes we have, let's say, undesirable images.
Good. Lars?
Well, on Cruise Saudi, we're not just building ports and launching ships. We're curating journeys that connect people, culture, and coastlines. And we invite the world to discover a new chapter of Saudi Arabia. Our success will be measured not only by how many guests we welcome, but by the pride we create and the legacy we leave on our shores.
JD? I'm going to put you in that spot.
My takeaway would be cruise. For those of you that didn't raise your hands, cruise. It's an amazing product. It's a catalyst for exploration that's only growing, and use a travel advisor, preferably one of ours. But I would suggest cruising. I hope that more hands get raised. I am impressed with the number of hands that were raised, but I hope that more are raised the next time we come around and ask that question.
And I think it's probably right to raise with you that I think 60% of cruise passengers return to a destination they first visited on a cruise.
They do,
So
yeah.
your people will have lots of business.
Yep, you're right.
Chris?
So that was going to be my point. When I referred to it earlier as a catalyst for growth, I wanted to leave the audience with two key elements that cruising brings to the table. One is we heard the Minister of Tourism of the UAE yesterday talking about the aspiration to grow the average length of stay from 3-4 days to 7 days. Cruise is 7 days. And you have the pre and post as well. So it leads into that strategy very strongly. The second is cruising is not just about the immediate impact of growth, because cruising can come much more quickly. Growth in tourism numbers can come more quickly through cruising than via land. I was going to refer to the revisitation statistics. These cruisers really sample destinations, and then they make a choice of where they want to come back and spend a bit more time and enjoy the destination more immersively. So cruising has an immediate impact and a long-term impact.
Manfredi, you're here all the time, I'm
Oh,
sure.
sorry, I'm out of time, but what I can tell you is this. I'm a veteran of the industry because I started working in a cruise line when I was 19. So that's 52 years ago. So I've seen a massive evolution. And what I can tell you is there's been, combined with huge growth, a huge segmentation. So when you say 60% want to return to the same destination, that's true for some of the people. The people who do in the three-star business in the US, Caribbean, 60% will always go back to the Caribbean. If you are at top end of the market, you will always want to change because cruising is a way to visit the world. So, and this is the beauty of cruising, that it is a very easy way of traveling and visiting the world, or it's a way of having amusement in an incredible way. I always say that cruising can be the best package tour ever, or it can be the best experiential travel ever, which are two different things. Package tour is you go, everything's done for you. You have the Luna Park, you have this, you have that. And if it's experiential, you go to the Arctic, you go to Antarctic. I also welcome these brands of hotels who come in. First of all, they're bringing higher pricing levels. We're all happy about it because our industry needs a move to increase pricing level because the product is hugely underpriced. So that's great. But it also brings further segmentation. So, and here.
So I think it's fair to say you think cruising is the best way to see the world? Cruising is one of the best ways to see the world?
Yeah.
It's a good one to end on.
Look,
thank you guys. I know we're out of time. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, we have to stay still.
Now, yeah, we stay seated. Stay seated.